Hi everybody and welcome back to Scary Nightmare. I just want to let you know that this part is spectacularly amazing. Literally guys, I had lots of goosebumps, lots of chills as I was reading it. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, before you start watching part 3, I heavily recommend you to go ahead and watch from part 1 in order to understand the story from the very beginning until here. And for now, let's begin. We topped up and floats and set out on our assigned paths. I basically led Team 1, and that was myself and Peter, on perimeter recon. Team 2 was Mark and John, as they would go straight down the center of the cavern beneath the artifact. And when it came to Team 3, that was Luke and Eve, they would remain in the base until another squad returned. I estimated my team would take 4 hours with a couple of breaks, except for Mark and John, it was only 3 hours. As we approached the midway point of the cavern, the floodlights had long faded behind us. The weight of darkness seemed to present, a vast emptiness swallowing the sound of our steps. I found myself getting jittery, genuinely nervous for the first time in years, so it stung my eyes as I checked and rechecked our location. When we stopped to drink, I activated my mic, and then I said, "Any updates from Team 2? "Fourth stop," Mark replied. "Taking more readings from the artifact." I heard John's voice in the background, then he clicked on his own mic and repeated himself so I could hear. "The electromagnetic interference is from the cylinder. Almost certain of that now. It appears weakest at the midpoint, rising in intensity at either end. Still to confirm that, of course." And when it came to Team 3, I was asking if everything alright, and immediately Luke's voice appeared. He said no issues, in a calm and an assured voice. He also said, "We completed the equipment diagnostics, so we're good to go when needed." I then noticed the camera's quality degrading with distance. It seemed like we'd lose contact with Luke and Eve by the time we reached the far end of the chamber. My train of thought was broken by Peter's hand on my arm. I turned and saw him pointing ahead. "I see a light," he said. "Grid Z109 maybe, or 110. I peered into the distance where he indicated. There was definite illumination there, a dull red which varied in intensity. I flicked the cameras back on. "This is Team 1. We may have found something. We're gonna investigate. Grid Z109. The glow increased in size and strength as we approached, and when we got within 50 feet it became apparent that it was radiating from the biofilm wall, a fluctuating crimson shining through the material of the chamber. Then I realized it was moving and flowing slowly down the wall, then across the floor. "It's lava." Peter was smiling broadly, his face bathed in red light, fascinated and amused in equal measure. He stepped forward and reached out for the glowing surface, placing his hand against it before I could stop him. "It's cool," he said with a laugh, waving his hand back at me. No heat transfer at all. It was that close that we could see the biofilm itself shimmering. Whatever substance it was made of, redirecting and disturbing the heat and pressure from the molten rock. As we stood and watched the flow surge beneath our feet, quickly growing to many times its original area and brightness, engulfing us both in its luminescence. "My God, look at that!" I followed Peter's gaze and my breath caught in my throat. The lava cast its light across the chamber, caressing all before in a sea of dark fire. And high above us was the gigantic artifact hung subtly revealed, still and silent and alien. "This is Team 2, John's voice interrupted us. "We found a discontinuity in the cylinder's surface. It is a narrow circular channel, faint light emanating from it. Approximate radius of 40 feet. Purely speculation, but perhaps an entrance of some sort." I tried to reply, but a burst of static left the audio crackling, and when I switched to John's video feed, it flickered too badly to see anything. "Hey, look," said Peter behind me. "The lava is cooling against the biofilm, fading already. I mean, that was 700 degrees at minimum." Team 1, Matthew." John's voice came through again. "This is Team 1, I replied. "Go ahead." Mark. Mark is missing. I turned and he was gone just seconds ago. It seems like I cannot see him, nor he's answering me on any communicating device." I pulled up the location trackers. Mark's had vanished and his video and audio were dead. "His gun is here though," John said. I switched to his video feed and saw the Fezes pick up the MK17. It was just lying there by itself. "Hey John, listen to me." I pulled up Mark's video history as I spoke. "Don't move, stay right where you are, and wait for my instructions." Mark's video cut out 90 seconds earlier. One frame he was watching John walk ahead of him. Next frame the signal was gone. I ignored my rising heart rate and focused. "John, you read me?" "Yes, I'm here. I hear you." "Stay on the communicating devices. Do not leave this line. We will come to you. I have you at grid M101, correct?" Yes, that sounds correct. Put all your lights on full and stay calm. We're en route." I realized I had already started towards him, and Peter was running behind me to catch up. "Team 1, Team 3, we may have an issue. Mark is MIA. Heading to last known location double time. Be ready to move if we require assistance." "No problem," Luke's voice, standing by. Seconds later, Mark's locator returned on tracking, but this video and audio remained out. According to the signal, he was only 30 feet from his last known position. "John, I need you to do something for me." "All right, are you close?" 4 minutes. "Look on your personnel tracker. Mark is back, northwest of you. Very close. Do you see it?" "Yes, I see the signal." "Shine your lights in that direction for me." I watched his feed as he turned to the correct heading and aimed his torch. "What's that?" he said, no longer able to hide the tremor in his voice. I zoomed in the picture to be certain. "It's Mark's helmet," I replied, quickening my pace again. "Don't move." Then after 2 minutes, I heard Peter's ragged breathing behind me as he struggled to keep pace. I remember calling back to him that we were almost there. Then with a wavering voice, John was calling Matthew. His camera went blank and his locator vanished. Mark's disappeared with it. I halted, weapon raised. Peter missed my hand signal and almost ran into me, clutching my pack to stop himself falling. Then I was calling for John over the communicating device. There was no reply. We were close, but I couldn't see ahead or hear anything other than Peter's breathing. "Mark, John, anyone, read me." Darkness closed in around us once more. Invisible arms tightening their grasp. These decisions. I had potentially lost 2 of my team. Should I regroup or search? With so little idea of what had happened, either could be disastrous. Had Mark cracked under the pressure, wandered off, then returned and taken John? It didn't seem likely. The man was a professional, as experienced as I was. Then I had this question in the back of my head. I was like, was it 2 accidents back-to-back which cut off all contact? That seemed even less likely. And what did that leave? Hostiles? I have no clue. "Hey, Team 1 to Team 3, Luke, we have a problem here. Have you been listening?" "Sir, yes sir, every word. What's your situation?" "Oh man, was just about to call you, sir." The communicating device crackled as he spoke, but I could still make him out. "May have a problem here too. I'm reading some failed floodlights on Team 2's road. Started right at the perimeter and working back towards us at base. 3, down now. Any ideas, sir?" "Nothing to do with us." I checked the system and he was right. All the outages were in a straight line from the furthest edge of lights towards the left. A 4th flashed out as I watched. I could feel things spiraling out of control. "Look, I cannot risk more people hunting for Mark and John. I have no idea what we're facing. I'm returning to you. Hold your position." "Yes, sir." We then began moving again, back to base at the best speed Peter could manage. On the display, I watched the line of floodlights continue to flick out. "Luke, sit rep." Lost more lights. Just 2 left on this grid line. Eve said she tried the thermal imaging. I heard her voice in the background, fast and rising, frightened. "Luke, what is going on?" Weapons fire in the distance. 2 bursts from an MK17. I froze and stared in the direction of the sound. On my tracker, their signals vanished. I dropped to one knee and scanned every patch of light ahead through my scope. Peter was at my shoulder gasping for breath. "What the freak was that?" That's what he said. Then quietly I cut him off, and I was calling for Luke and Ave. I said, "Luke, Ave, someone answer me." And I got no reply. There was nothing on any line but static. Holy moly. My heart was racing in an unexpected way. I looked at the grid where the floodlights went out. There was a second line of failures forming now. A new path which led away from the left towards us. I wavered. Despite all my training and experience, I was afraid, and it was breaking. I'd faced death before, taken a bullet more than once, but this wasn't the same at all. I felt as helpless as a child, crushed by a simple primal fear as old as our species itself. The fear of what might wait in the dark was haunting me more and more and more. Then I thought to myself, I don't want to die here. As I was re-gripping my weapon, I said, I will not die here. Peter, listen to me. Breathe. Breathe, Peter. Put your hand on my shoulder. Never let go. We're gonna step again from here to the left. Put all your lights out. Do not activate any communicating device. We're silent from here on in. Understand? He began to speak, then nodded instead. Shit. I thought if I was scared, I couldn't even imagine what he was going through. Then I was telling him, go, go, go. I chose a road which swung away from the disabled lights, taking us to the left in a wide loop. Every few seconds, more floodlights got off on the readout. Their path halted at our previous location, then began again in a scatter-shot pattern, expanding from that point. A search pattern. It became a race, soaked in sweat and shaking with adrenaline, every muscle burning, waiting every second for something to come out of the dark. A minute out of the closest light to our left failed. I swung us away from it. Weapons were up. Arms were shaky, pointing the barrel into the black. Peter was in desperate shape behind me. Then I felt a stumbling weight hanging on my side. I saw the lift ahead. Every nearby floodlight was down but two. We were close, maybe 30 seconds. Another light went out, 50 feet behind us. Then I called for Peter as I was gasping for air myself. I said straight inside, 20 seconds, get it moving, I'll cover the door. Then one light was remained. 10 seconds out, Peter's hand came off my shoulder, and when I turned in time, he was dead. It literally only lasted a fraction of a second. There was something grasping from the shadows that I couldn't make out. Only the way it held him. It crushed him as if he were trapped under limbs of perfect glass, breaking and tearing his body like paper. He came apart in a dozen pieces before he could even cry out. I stumbled back and fell, as blood was spraying across the ground and sinking into the bayou fell. My weapon was hung limp in my hand. I hadn't even fired, didn't even know what to shoot at. I scrambled away on all fours, then back to my feet and through the lift gate. Then I had my finger on the trigger and I was in. One hand working the panel and the other trying to keep my weapon. The lift began to ascend. I literally left all of them behind. Sometimes I wonder to myself whether if I'm guilty or no. I mean, I'm posting this because it is the right thing, the moral thing, to give people the truth. I'm not lying to myself. I just feel a high sense of guilt, and I don't know. In the grand scheme of things, do my reasons even matter? All that matters is the truth. People have a right to know what is coming. More than that, they have a right to know what is already here. I set the lift to max ascent speed of 30 miles per hour. It would get me to the surface in 18 minutes. Exhaustion took over. I slid to my knees, pulled off my helmet and poured water over myself. I was on my knees in a corner, as my forehead was against the cool metal beside the communicating device panel. Every detail raced through my mind over and over. Every mistaken failure and misjudgment. Then I started getting intermittent signals from some of the communicating devices around 2 miles. I kept trying and finally got through at 1 mile. I cannot remember my exact words. I told them I was the only survivor, that I was alone, only 2 minutes away. Most of the replies were lost to static. Then Joanna's voice came through, clear and repeating a question. Matthew, main carriage weight reads 900 pounds. If you're alone, what are you bringing up? I remember those comments. Confusion to realization to her. I knew there was nothing in the cargo hold. It had been sealed when empty. There had been nothing in the carriage either. No, nothing I could see. Matt, can you hear me? I reached for the control panel, typed in the emergency overrides, and detached the cargo hold. I felt the weight go. I heard a crash from below as it caught the tunnel wall and spun into the darkness. I switched the screen to lift diagnostics. The carriage weight was still 900. I stopped the ascent, closed my eyes as I'm breathing. It grew quiet as the lift settled. I remember I was still on my knees, one hand on my weapon. I waited, listening. A creak from behind me, the tiniest shifting of weight in the lift corner. I spun and opened fire. The sudden roar of my rifle deafening in the enclosed space. Then I was in the air, stunned from a massive impact, then falling, striking the tunnel wall and falling with the lift going past. I should be dead. It was luck that saved me, nothing else. My left leg went through one of the support bars that had held the cargo bay. As I swung back, my flailing hand grasped metal, and I held myself there. My gun was gone, and I couldn't feel my left arm. Then the pain came, waves of blinding pain from my shoulder and across my torso, blood rushing down my chest. I could see it pouring into the dark below me. As I fought to pull myself up, I heard and felt more movement above me. A sudden jerk as weight was lifted, then the scrape of something on the cables, shaking the entire lift back and forth. Whatever had been in there with me was climbing the rest of the way out. Then after that, Joanna was calling for Matt, asking him what is going on, as she heard the weapons fire. I realized only a few seconds had passed since I'd opened fire. She literally just kept calling for Matt. Then it got out for the last time. I heard gunshots from above. Many gunshots and lots of screams. I have no idea how long it took me to get back up. I was faint and in shock from blood loss and trauma. I don't even remember activating the lift. There was a hole clean through the ballistic plate in my body armor and shoulder. My MK-17 was on the floor, crushed like a soda can. The areas above were a disaster. Dead bodies and destroyed equipment, Adam and Joanna. What remained of them were in the control room. The huge airtight steel door had been torn out of the wall and tossed aside like it was made of cardboard. I was the only one left alive, and the thing I had brought to the surface was gone. And that's it for today's story, guys. If you guys love the living hell out of it, smash me that thumbs up button right now and leave a comment down below with all of your suggestions. Thank you, and see you again.